So thank you for this opportunity. Hopefully everybody can see my screen. Okay.
Yeah, we can see it. Yeah.
Yep.
I'll put the link to this. If you want to, sometimes people want to look around the mural board. I'm going to be using mural board to present or to share my thoughts with you. So feel free to follow along or move around, whatever you want to do. I'll try to keep it short here with my intro. My family came to the United States in '95. I started building websites in high school. I built my own, my high school's first website. We came to Portland, Maine. My dad had friends in Portland, Maine, and St. Pete, Florida, and we ended up in Maine. So that passion continued in college. I went to Bryan University. So this is in New England. I currently live in Portland, Maine still. I've lived all over the United States, but I came back to Maine. I went to Bryan University in Smithfield, Rhode Island, and started a web development company there. And I accidentally got to work with a company called Visible Systems in Wayland, and they were doing some version of extreme programming. And that was my first exposure to agile ways of working. And over the last 20 or so years, I worked with publicly traded companies, startups, government agencies, and everything in between. So I've been also working on a book for the last 5 years around organizational change and leadership called The Four Lenses of Agility, although I've been changing. I was going to publish it last year, and then with ChatGPT and everything, I was like, what do I do now? I spent 4 years writing, and now I can write a book a lot quicker. So I'm still, I just got back into it. I'm refining it and hoping to publish it. My goal is by May. So on a personal note, I have 2 boys, 20-month-old and 8-year-old. And now these days I spend time between Portland, Maine, and Croatia and Montenegro, where my wife's from. It used to be all one country, Bosnia, Croatia, Yugoslavia, for those of you that might understand. The conflicts, and I write in my book a little bit about my upbringings and how complexity in war is similar to some extent to to complexity in organizations. I have a YouTube channel. I organize free conferences. I do podcasts, and actually the last 2 conferences on December 4th and December 11th were around organizational design and topic that were value streams that we're discussing today. So if you want to check out, I put the link in the chat for that. And yeah, so let's dive into it. So I want to start first with just these, what I call 3 types of organizations. And then I'll talk about how we look at value streams or this C type of structures. I'm going to talk about differences between A and B type of structures versus C. And then I use the concepts from Steve Perrier's book, Flow Engineering, that came out recently. And we're going to talk about value stream mapping, but there are types of mapping and things that you need to consider. So I'm going to go over these as well. So the first thing is, like, we can do value stream mapping with any type of organization. Value streams exist. No, doesn't matter what type of organizational structure you have. Value flows through your organization. It's just more how well do we understand where the bottlenecks are. So A type of organization is your typical government agencies, and this is where companies were, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years ago. On the left side here, you have business. And on the right side, you have IT. And typically, business or somebody in business would write some type of BRDs, business requirements documents. They would send them over to IT. Those documents will be converted to system requirements documents. In IT, we would run things by PMO and projects. So we would have like development department, QA department, BA department, and like people from these departments would be assigned to multiple projects most of the time. Anybody remembers this? Does this resonate with you guys? Yes, yeah.
Yep.
So that's typical what we call matrix type of structure. Today, like for instance, when I work with companies that are A type of structure or this type of matrix type of structure, for instance, I work with California DMV, one of the biggest government agencies. $9 billion goes to California DMV every year. They wanted to do Agile and Scrum, and what that meant for them, they said, Miljan, we're not going to do waterfall. We're going to assign people from these departments and make a Scrum team. So no restructuring. And typically this is only looked as an IT thing. We're going to probably get like a business analyst to be the product owner. We're going to get the project manager, maybe from PMO, to be the Scrum Master. A lot of times. And what I'm discussing here is patterns, everything's slightly different, but the general patterns is what happens, or what I'm trying to describe. So we want to do Agile, but we don't want to do the hard stuff. We just want to do the process. So what you end up with is people on the Scrum team that are specialists, like back-end developers, front-end developers, the manual testers, automated tester, whatever, right? And a lot of times they're not even dedicated. So this is what I call A type of organizations. Most government agencies operate like this. No restructuring, just applying practices and changing project management, let's just put it that way, processes, but everything else stays the same.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
In B, this is probably where most organizations are today. We're in New England, so like Capital One, like a lot of banks, a lot of insurance companies. I work with one insurance company, 10,000 people, and in 2014, we converted about 1,500 people in IT. We got rid of development department, QA department, BA department, and created 118 Scrum and Kanban teams. So the difference between A and B is where you restructure IT, and this is what we call agile transformations. And agile transformations are IT focused and not really business thinks this is something IT needs to do. And in this instance, we would have restructuring. So you would have in this instance, we had the manager called capability manager, technical capability manager, TCM. And they would have now testers or QA people, software engineers, business analysts, all reporting to this person. Back here, they were reporting to their department heads. Like if you're a software engineer, you would be reporting to somebody in development. So with B type of structure, we restructure IT into more cross-functional teams, but we're also prescriptive. Like if you're product development, you do Scrum. If you're in operations or maintenance, you do Kanban. And there's usually no picking and choosing what you do. A lot of times what we'll see is also we have technical product owners. And these are the people that advocate for like technical debt, automation, and other things that business thinks that's not their problem. Both A and B are matrix type of structures. The way that we do funding, the way that HR works is pretty much still aligned with traditional organizational structure. In C type of structure, we talk about value streams, product-based services. Deloitte has popularized like customer journeys and things like that. But really what we're trying to do in C is combine business and IT. So in A, we're just artificially applying practices and processes on top of structure that hasn't changed at all. In B, we apply some of these agile principles and restructuring around IT, but not IT and business. In C, we're talking about restructuring the entire organization. And this is why, right now it's difficult. Like, for instance, Fidelity's also has at least, some parts in New England. It's very difficult. Some parts of Fidelity Investments is in A, some part is B, and some is trying to move towards C. So you could have an organization that has different parts in different areas. And all of these have their pros and cons. But essentially what we're trying to do in C is create better flow of value delivery, right? And, if we ask people, where do we think our bottlenecks are in A and B, even in C, a lot of times people won't know. It's just, right now your company has set budget for this year through cost centers. And, so what we're trying to do in C is restructure around end-to-end value stream networks, whatever you want to call them. But essentially, we're trying to minimize dependencies on other teams. We're trying to essentially create more transparency and be able to deliver and validate and pivot quicker than what we can in A and B. I'm using here team topologies. In team topologies, they use these different type of teams, or you could have a platform team, you could have a value stream or stream teams, enabling teams, solution teams, and these are patterns. And all of this is in essence to clarify and to simplify the organization for quicker delivery, I guess, and or for lack of a better term, organizational agility. So maybe in the chat, just let me see, technical capability manager, Maggie. So let's maybe just put in the chat, what do you think? Where is your organization? Which does it A, B, C, or maybe B moving to C? Which part dominates the organization the most? What type of structure? If I had to guess, it's going to be B, but let's see. So just put in the chat, what do you think? So we got BA, couple of A's, closer to B. B. That's another thing. A lot of times companies think they're in like, A and B or C when they're actually A and B. But we also don't have a language to talk about these things. One of the things I started like probably 8-10 years ago talking about these by just drawing some, version of this on a whiteboard and trying to explain to people. And it's really in the last 5 years that people started talking about value streams, at least in the agile circles. So if you think about A and B, we have silos and functions, wherein C is more of like a line delivery network, value stream, or whatever you want to call it, value stream network. A and B are also all about following the plan and predict and plan, where in C, it's more about delivering value, customer value, everything's structured around customers. Technical debt in A and B is IT problem. And then technical debt is a business problem in C. And order taking, outputs focused is in A and B. And then you'll see more problem solving, outcome focused in C. And obviously all of this is simplified one versus another, but hopefully this is giving you some context and idea of what I'm trying to convey here. Funding is a big part, funding silo cost centers versus funding value streams. This is like another example where SAFe, Scaled Agile Framework, fails. Like, in a sense, people pick and choose. But if you look at SAFe and how budgeting is done in SAFe, is you fund value streams, but look at how many companies that are trying to do safe actually fund value streams. So bureaucracy versus transparency. And then you have that, the silos and function create that what's best for my department area, and HR also. Incentives drive a lot of times what we do. I recently had a leader tell me, Miljan, I know what the right thing to do is and what you're saying, but I'm incentivized to do it this way. And I have kids in college. What do you want me to do? And in C, it's more about what's best for the company. It's more of that holistic, not, sub-optimizing. But another thing that comes, or that's when it comes to technical excellence, when we look at how we deploy to production and practices like continuous integration, continuous delivery, traditionally these were all handoffs, like somebody in portfolio management would select piece of work, somebody would do requirements, hand it over to design, hand it over to people to build or code. We would test it, somebody release management, and then operations. So what you typically see in this A and B, and I'm just roughly saying this, but in A and B, you'll see, traditional development. In government, you see this. So, maybe in B, you'll see more mature technical practices, maybe all the way down to 5. And then in C, you'll start seeing more mature technical practices where people are doing continuous integration, continuous delivery, where product owner is truly product owner. They're not a proxy product owner who just takes orders, but they're actually responsible for end-to-end selecting, deciding. The team actually, pushes their code, maintains their code. So there's that aspect. Generally speaking, it's very difficult to see a type of organization have very mature technical practices. I'm going to, maybe just to also give you, I didn't allude to this earlier, but traditional A and B, this is the matrix type of structure where you have functions, and then you have, projects and, PMO, and then you have project managers assigned across multiple for that project. So project coordination. In C, it's more of this type of structure where we organize by products, and you have product owner that's responsible across multiple functions. And it could be here where it's across all 4. Here's only 2, here's 3. We could have a service. So moving towards C is very difficult. I've never seen it done unless you're, board of directors and C-suite actually knew what they were doing. A lot of times I go into organizations, and what happens is they bring Deloitte or Boston Consulting Group or McKinsey, and they come with their playbooks and say, hey, do this. And it's like having a chef come into your restaurant, give you a recipe, and say, see you later after 6 months. If you don't have, your own chefs, guess what? When ingredients change, who's gonna cook up something that's delicious? Bring those consultants back to give us another recipe. Right? That's, at least I don't know if it's resonating with you, but that's the type of things that I've seen. And we're stuck right now. Most organizations are stuck in B. And what's also happening now with like a lot of Scrum Masters getting essentially fired or let go, people are questioning B, is we're in this, I recently wrote, maybe I'll post about Thomas Kuhn's paradigm change. He's the person that popularized term, or I think even came up with the term paradigm. And right now we're in kind of model crisis. Like right now, the prescriptive agile frameworks have not delivered on what people expected, and people are changing Scrum Master to some other role or questioning in general agile, and we're stuck in this B model, and we're probably going to be stuck for the next few years at least before companies realize that we need to move or start aligning more and restructuring companies around C. And restructuring is just one part. In my book, I talk about, organizational structures and policies is one of four things. The other thing is behaviors, changing behaviors and actions, like how do we change behaviors, practices. And the other two are mindset and culture. So we have mindset and culture, we have organizational structure, and then practices. And that's what these four lenses, I call it the four lenses. But think about when we look at organization, we can look at it through, how leadership, like, do we have leaders with big ego? Well, they're going to want organizational structure like A and B because they want to control things. And they want to practices like, give me those deadlines. I need you to give me those precise estimates. And the result, those type of mindset, big ego mindsets, structures like A and B, predict and plan, forcing people into like Scrum or Kanban, it'll create a culture that's representing those type of things. And you get a culture that's bureaucratic. You get this, like, I don't think we've never had the level of disengagement that we have today. Like people, I don't know, it's like above 70% where people just don't give a crap. So before I continue, any thoughts on this? Any questions? Is it making sense? What would you like me to clarify?
No, so feel free to put questions in the chat. If
yeah.
you can't speak, I'll read them out for you as well for any reason. But yeah, just makes sense to me. I've definitely seen organizations in different parts of organizations in different represented in different ways that you've described. So
And this is fairly advanced topic. Like if you're not into organizational design, organizational governance, business architecture, this is going to be over most people's heads because there are few people in an organization that are thinking about organizational architecture, business architecture. But at the root cause, this is why a lot of times people struggle. Oh, Gil, I didn't know you're here.
Yeah, Gil's got a good one.
So let's see. Yeah, I'm curious about the delineation between B and C. I see a lot of companies have some of both, mostly understanding that C is a target, but unable to do all of. Yeah, I think it's a process. It takes time. I've been in an organization where we essentially, and maybe when I talk about different type of these maps, but essentially we designed this. Well, maybe I can use actually Gil's question to talk about this. So typically, what you want to do is outcome mapping down here for flow engineering. What we want to do is say like, okay, well, if we want to move from A to B or B to C, what are the outcomes that we're looking for? What are the business outcomes that we're looking for? So typically in B to C, we're going to say, okay, who are our customers? Who are our users? And walk backwards. Like, how does value get to these people? If I'm, in this instance, let's just say buying Tesla, what is the experience all the way from Tesla getting delivered to my driveway, from my experience on customizing Tesla, maybe on a website? What is that, And we start by understanding the end goal, or what are we trying to do? Where are we trying to go? So outcome mapping is typically the first step that you want to do. You do some type of discovery, target outcome. What are the benefits? What makes this valuable? What is in the way? What can, we test, use hypothesis, validate, small tests. Then we're going to say, okay, well, let's map the current state. So if we're in A, let's map what does A look like? Can we even map A? Because a lot of times I recently tried to I work with the organization, and as soon as we started mapping and looking at the metrics, they kicked us out. They're like, "You're making us look good." Oh, sorry, no, the other way around. You're making us look bad. Get out of here. Because in A and B, we're incentivized by silos. So as soon as you start exposing things that are hindering end-to-end delivery, so to Gil's question, why does it take so long from A to B to C? Well, incentives in A and B are counterintuitive to C. Like imagine a leader where they have 200 people reporting to them in A or B, saying you're not going to have as many people reporting to you in C. And their bonus, their authority, all depends by how many people report up to them. So, and these are not dumb people when they see this. And if you think about change management, a lot of times I use the SCARF model. If people have some type of fear, they'll actually resist that. So a lot of times, to Gil's question, it's very difficult to move from A to B to C is because change management, we don't do a good way of communicating and explaining to people, or a lot of times people are caught off guard, or just because of previous experiences. I was actually working and did this, like this was, I don't know, 7-8 years ago. And I went to Worcester. This was for a company called Unum. You guys probably know they do short-term, long-term disability.
Yep.
And I went to, we did these like quarterly retrospectives, and essentially like this was like a satellite office for Unum. 9 people show up for these quarterly retrospectives, and one woman goes, at the beginning of this like group retrospective is like, Miljan, you know what? You guys treat us like mushrooms. And I some of you might know the expression. I didn't know. I'm like, what do you mean mushrooms? She's like, you keep us in the dark and feed us shit, and you come here to ask for our feedback. And I got caught out, I was surprised. I'm like, you're right in a sense. We do ask for feedback and we don't do much with it. And that's what happens a lot of times. People go through these and they're like, before Agile, there was something else. Before, we're just going to ride this way. So you have to understand the current state. So, you can do value stream mapping or part of a value stream. A lot of times it's very difficult to just do the, entire value stream. Like with the company that I mentioned, we essentially identify 16 value streams moving from B to C. We spent maybe 3 years moving from A to B. And then they brought in this essentially person as a COO from ING Bank in Netherlands to go from B to C, and we did the current state, and then we identified the future state. So before we did the future state, we did the dependency mapping between, okay, how are we going to structure, what are the dependencies with systems, with teams, and then we did like future state value stream mapping where we said, okay, what is C going to look like? And with that person, we started essentially moving towards, like we did 3 value streams, and essentially they brought in a chief technology officer, and we went backwards. So a lot of times, all you need is one bad hire at the executive level, and you're screwed. You go backwards. Because they went back to B. So designing the future state, understanding how do we take an agile approach to start moving towards C. So that's why I was saying you'll see some organizations that have a little bit of all of these because they might be in the process of moving towards C, but they might be just doing one area. And then you have to have some type of roadmap. How are we going? What is our plan? Have, an idea of, what we're doing. So going back to Gil's question, why does this happen? There are a lot of different reasons, but one of the biggest ones, I would say, is broad term mindset, but it's not really the mindset. It's people just not understanding what C looks like. And a lot of people that are promoted to executive positions, they don't understand organizational design or change management, and they bring consultants, as I said, to do their work. And as I said, the analogy that I use, it's like bringing in a chef to give you a recipe and then leave, but your ingredients are constantly changing in your restaurant. So I don't know, Gil, if that answers your question. Olamide, sorry, I don't know. I saw you had your hand up. I don't know if you want to speak up or if you want
Yeah,
me to answer your question.
actually, I put it in the chat. I've been quite, I've been around Agile quite a bit, and some of the diagnosis you're making is absolutely spot on.
Yeah.
Being in a lot of organizations that tried and went backwards, and I'm just wondering, has anyone successfully done these things? Any large organizations really made these transitions and it's stuck and it affected the business bottom lines? Are their stories? Because for me, quite a lot of times it's just we can't find models of these things, right?
I
So
mean, we can find it's very difficult to find it in our industry, but if you think about like Toyota and like what they've done, with manufacturing, they've done this. They actually gone through this. What's different with knowledge work is that a lot of this is invisible, right? And a lot of it is a lot more complex than you know. So like examples would be like companies that are moving towards C and are trying to move towards C, like I said, Fidelity, ING Bank, uh, Apple, and some of these are structured a little bit differently, but they look at flow. They look at these principles. We shouldn't look at just structure and say like, oh, we want to do value streams, or we want to do team topologies, or we want to do this. Like that's the issue that we had with Scrum and scaled agile frameworks, and like, oh, we just want to copy this template. We want to do this. We want to do that. And that's very difficult because like it's you don't I was talking to Dave Snowden like on the last conference and he talked about like how we need to break down these frameworks, and not just cookie cutter, but customize them and contextualize them to our environment. So do we have examples? I think there are examples out there, but they're all partial examples. And the reason for that, and maybe I'll share this article. Let me just see. Using this analogy, let me see. Oh, right here. I'll put the link if you guys want to read it. But essentially, let me see if I can open up this image. Essentially, like where we're at right now, we went from dominance of waterfall, probably like in 60s, 70s, 80s, where waterfall kind of model started. We started seeing issues with it. In 1990s, like agile frameworks emerged, and they've been probably popular to the last couple of years. And right now we're moving from model crisis to model revolution, according to this Thomas Kuhn's paradigm kind of cycle. And what's happening right now is as we move towards this, people will start seeing the benefits of C. We're just trying to figure out how do we go from prescriptive frameworks like SAFe, which most companies try to do, to more of contextualized frameworks. And this is what right now Dave Snowden's talking about. This is actually, I asked him during that, what PMI tried to do and what Scott Ambler tried to do with PMI and Discipline Agile, reconfiguring things. But there are other implications. So I think I'll put this link if you guys want to read it. This is one of the chapters in my book, or the version of it. There's a newer version. But there are a lot of issues with why we can't move towards C, and it has to do with people not willing to restructure, people not having patience. If you think how people are incentivized, everything is 1 year. What are you going to do this year? And a lot of this takes more than 1 year to implement. And how do you justify slowing down when everything is about speed up, speed up? So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's my take on it. It's very difficult to
Yes, thank you.
companies that are able to move or that move towards C and deliver better and achieve better organizational agility will be more successful. Let me make sure that I don't miss any questions here.
I'm just summarizing some of your excellent points there, Miljan.
So I think Samuel, I'm thinking for any organization to be C, is it possible? Plus, most top managements are still asking them. I mean, all you need to do is look at a startup. Most startups are set up as C. So it's just as we scale, once we get past probably 50 people, you start seeing like once you go on over 150, you have you're still small company, but you have big company problems. Like how do you structure the company? How do you so that's the issue. As we start growing, we get to companies get more bureaucratic and things like that. So I think the far reach are hard. Yeah, I mean it's interest. Yeah, Samuel, you're right. I mean it's there's a lot more. I mean, like I'm not diving deeper into these because there's a lot more that's underneath. Nabil, how about value streams are owned by cross-functional teams and constructed by connecting business capabilities that are owned by I mean, again, there's no single best answer, but the general principle is like, okay, where are our bottlenecks? What are we doing to optimize those bottlenecks, optimize for flow and delivery? There's more than one way to structure, but the issue is that most of us don't fully understand how to do it or don't have the authority to do it. And also as humans, we cling towards predictability and certainty. So yeah, laughing at Gil's and there's a lot more to this too. Like, if you're familiar with work with, Lisa Atkins and Michael Spade, like around, and Gil wrote, a lot about this too. The mindset and culture and like, different like cognitive capacities of leaders. That's another kind of reason why we see all of this. Yeah, exactly. But that's Gil, that's one of the challenges is what worked before. What's worked 10, 15, 20 years ago is not necessarily same that works today. But also, I think a lot of that, like I tell people, like, during COVID is a good example. During the Civil War in Bosnia, where I grew up, you would see like, how people's behavior changed. Like, if you think about like, we're freaking like fighting over toilet paper. And things like that when crisis hit. And like I remember in Sarajevo, like there was a huge Volkswagen plant there, and people stealing cars, and like to level that of I don't know how you would describe it, like the low levels that people would go to do things, and from killing to like all kinds of like stuff when like your life depends on it. It's almost like we degrade are like what I call, what others have called mind operating system. We start functioning from our basic human instincts. And I think same thing happens in organization. When you have an executive that's making decent amount of money, has invested a lot in their family and their assets, and you ask this person to change things up, which could potentially result in them losing their authority, losing their salary, they're going to act in self-interest, not what's best for the company. And just on top of this, you have to remember that we work and live in a capitalist environment. It's all about profits. So the stockholders force these people to act in certain ways. So it's a cycle. And I don't have an answer for it, but I think those are all, like, the bigger ecosystem is also contributing to why people act the way that they act.
I think it's funny because it always circle back to, like, why hire them, right? Like, so that you can place the blame on someone. Well, they're not going to be held accountable anyway, so why not just let at least let the group, the departments decide for themselves? Let however the organization is structured, the teams just decide and work and figure out what works themselves. Like, why do we need all these levels of management and executives?
Paul Joyner, who's also from this area, has a great book. Some of you probably know it, Leadership Agility. In chapter 2, he talks about 5 Eds. And these are, his model is based on this cognitive theory that people develop, adult development theory, that people develop or could develop cognitively as they grow into adults, and ego development. So there's a lot that you can probably learn by reading that book, by reading Gill's book, understanding human behavior. And I think if you have a overarching system that promotes profits, you're gonna hire these, what he calls Eds 1 and 2s, most of the time, who have big ego and who want to succeed. So the environment in our ecosystem actually wants those type of leaders to lead companies, because they're more likely to actually achieve the profits that these companies want.
And I was just thinking about, if you also consider the fact that these large companies, they have to report quarterly earnings and profitability to the street, and stock prices and all of that. And I don't know if I mean, you said it already, I don't know if there are easy answers. The long-term perspective required to make these pivots, and just to stick with it and not find the changes being rolled back. I'm not sure it's easy to do at all. I work for a very large company, and it's all about the quarter. It's all about the quarter. The highest horizon you really think about is 2 quarters, and the same thing for large government agencies. So we are a large quoted company that work for federal government agencies, and it's so hard when the agencies have a budget and they have some of these legislative mandates they have to pivot to. And
well, that's that bigger ecosystem that I'm talking about. Like,
yeah,
those are type of things that are all preventing. And essentially, like, going back to Thomas Kuhn's cycle, eventually, these drifts become realities where, like, if you think about, like, sustainability and eco-friendly, like, that's, last probably 20 years is more the focus on that. And you can see that there's more, the paradigm is changing around a lot of this, and it's back and forth. It's pendulum, like, it goes a little bit and goes backwards, then goes. But the bigger ecosystem and, like, what we actually need to succeed, like, in today's environment, is profits, is and like I tell people, profits is like, air. You just need profits in order to have the organization, live, same way that you need the air to, but we need to go beyond just profits. And a lot of companies, if you can look at their HR policies and how people are incentivized, is still very short-term focused. And so what else? I'm just doing like a high level, like, we could spend and dive deeper into each of these ideas. So yeah, let's see maybe if you have any other questions before I share a couple other things with you guys.
So question. Sorry, trying to find the mute button. But on the section for the organization's fee, on that diagram that you show, value stream, expert solution, enabling, and platform, is the idea that you have these other components and other teams around your value stream team, or is it that they're there to enable and could potentially, assist with this overarching, right, focus?
One of the key ideas in team topologies that they talked about is cognitive load. And what that means is like, we could have like expert solution, like HR, for instance. And, we don't need an HR person on our team, but we could have like a person in HR that's dedicated to our value stream, or a team. So, there are questions and people are questioning platform teams and like, but the idea is like most of the teams would be like end to end, dedicated to a value stream. And then you would have some of these other teams like enabling teams or expert solution teams or maybe platform teams. And you guys can dive, I put some examples down here so you guys can just zoom in on your own and check it out. Or here's the link for team topologies. You can check it out. I had also Matthew, who wrote this book, do a keynote. So that's in that YouTube. If you go up here and click on this logo, or it should, take you to, and also Suzanne did a great talk around using team topologies and a few other frameworks, like Wordly maps and or approaches. But these are just configurations. Think about into configurations and structures that still enable and look at that end-to-end delivery.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the platforms being question. Could you go into, I guess, what your input there for that?
I don't know, have a strong opinion. I would, and neither am I qualified to, I guess, speak. But there are people that are questioning the benefit of having platform teams, and does it create more silos, and like, structurally, is it a good idea or not? And I think one of the things that Matthew said, he's agreed to some extent, and also said, don't look at these as like a blueprint. Look at these as patterns. There are patterns for communication as well. So I think, for most of us, we're not familiar. We don't have enough examples in knowledge work and that's why this is like emergent to some extent. With the manufacturing and some of the more visible repetitive work, it's a little bit easier, but with knowledge work, there's so many other aspects of it that makes it a lot more challenging to structure and sustain. See, like, I tell people, think about, these as fitness levels, or like, it's not like, oh, we moved to C and we're done. It's constantly looking and revamping it, looking, is this the best? And that requires a lot of collective sense making. And it doesn't, happen overnight. So like any change, I think, we're going to start seeing more and more, but probably in 10 years, C is going to be like what B is today, where like a lot of companies trying to figure out C. It's still not perfect, but you're going to see more and more companies starting to structure as C. And it doesn't take a year. It takes more like a decade for companies, especially larger companies, to experiment and start seeing the benefits of that. Same way that it took like probably 20 years to go from A to B. So I don't know how AI, imagine AI where AI does outcome mapping for you or helps you outcome map. Like
that was going to be my next question. Like, how is AI going to help fix this for us? Let's do it.
Well, it's like, I say, like, imagine not having consultants give you like boilerplate templates, but using your own company's data and having AI as a consultant saying like, try this, do this based on what I know. And you can have your AI learn and understand your company and give you a hypothesis to try out, Same thing with mapping the current state, looking at dependencies, and none of this, even when you do current state map, when you do a lot of these things, it's never 100% accurate. But what you're trying to do is understand, where should I look? Where do I think is best to optimize? For future state, it's an ongoing thing. You don't know where you have an idea what you want to do, but it's constant redefinement of where we want to go. How do we want to structure? And then the last thing, I guess, here I didn't talk about, but you guys can explore on your own around value streams. Like, a lot of us are familiar with lead type, cycle time, maybe not as many with like, arrival rate, process time, activity ratio, percentage complete and accurate. In some of my classes, I go deeper into this and explain it in terms of, pizza delivery, but also in terms of operational value streams versus development value streams. And this is concept that SAVE has kind of butchered, and they call ARTS development value streams and operational value streams. And most of what we talk about in DevOps is these development value streams. Essentially optimizing only what's in B here, optimizing on the right side here. But we really need to optimize across the entire organization, across these operational value streams or end-to-end value streams. And this is an example from one of my clients where we looked at, these, their two value streams or in this instance, we looked at it as a corporate credit card and health savings account. And you have, certain development value streams like Workday that support two operational value streams. So what do we do? How do we make sure that, things are the minimum wait times, and that this, whoever is the value stream owner for this, they have the authority to make sure where everything is, moving across these, or that's working with these as optimal as it can right now. So there's a lot, with the webinars like this, it's always, okay, how deep do I go? What are people interested? Where do we focus? But this is a very big topic. And it's great that people are starting to show more interest in this, but I hope the overview that I've given you is making you think a little bit differently about your organization and some of these challenges.
In this example that you have, Miljan, do you think of that center row as a value stream, or Workday and these individual things being a value stream?
Well, they could be these development values. It's definitely the development value stream, could be.
Okay.
And you could do, yeah. So. But ultimately, again, it's, if I could leave you with one idea, is like, from end to end, from a customer request to customer delivery, from somebody requesting something to delivery, what do we first of all know how things get all the way through? Because most of the time we're incentivized, vertically. Do we know where the bottlenecks are? Do we know how long it takes? Are we measuring all the way from business to actually getting to production or whatever it is? It could be bigger value stream where, even just one, like, looking at development value stream is helpful. But it used to be that development value streams were bottlenecks, but now some business areas are actually bigger bottlenecks than development value streams. So understanding where the bottlenecks are is another aspect.
How about security vulnerabilities that is that seen as it's like an internal value stream that everyone has to deal with the reality of? So is that just part of the development value stream, or?
Well, it could be part of development. It could be one of these enabling teams. It could be, expert solution. Like, we have to look at it like it goes back to that. I really like the idea of cognitive load from team topologies. What makes sense, right? A small company might have different need right now than, a larger company that has different strategy. So that's one of the issues, like we want recipes. We want like, hey, Miljan, just give me the recipe.
Yeah.
And like we need to contextualize things based on business strategy, based on where we are. Like, what's best right now versus what's going to be best in 2 years. What's feasible now versus what's going to be feasible in 2 years. So it's really like taking apart the organization and saying, where do we focus?
Yeah, and focusing on the bottleneck, right? Focusing on after you get the map.
Always focus on that. You're always going to have the bottlenecks, but focus on that biggest bottleneck.
Right.
And most of the time, we don't even know where it is. The Goal, again, not a great book on this by Eli Goldratt that everybody goes back to, and I think it's a great novel that talks about these ideas, theory of constraints. Gil has talked about it. Everybody has talked about it. That if you're not familiar, go get a book, The Goal by Eli Goldratt. Yeah, I'm gonna leave this link open. You guys can go back to it. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I don't know if I put the link in or not, but yeah, I'll open it up for further discussion. But that's all I have for tonight.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation tonight. I did have a question. I'm trying to understand the difference between value streams and programs. So let me give you an example. Where I am, we were on the Spotify model and we've evolved, and now they're taking these teams that are in product areas and they're wrapping a program around it, and they're saying that all these teams are working on this program. And now that I've seen your presentation, I could say that those programs could effectively be a value stream. But I always interpreted this program as a lack of the ability to scale Scrum. So they needed to put a program around the teams and a program manager when the teams already had Scrum Masters and a Scrum Master and a product area leadership. So I'm just trying to understand, like, I guess it is possible for a organization to be a blend of B and C.
It is, but it's usually same way that A thinks it's B, like without restructuring, it tries to do tries to appear as B. Same way that without truly restructuring, company could try to appear as C, and that's what kind of like every time I hear Spotify model or SAFe, I'm like, okay, talk to people at Spotify. Do you even understand what that means? But based on what you're describing, Daniel, I would say it is probably a combination of B and C. It's 90% B, probably 10% C in some way. And not necessarily that's bad. It might be, as I said, that might be the best company can do right now. But the biggest issue, it creates confusion for people like you and myself. It's like, what are we talking about here? We change the labels, we take on Spotify terms, but do we actually restructure like we need to restructure?
Yeah.
So those are type of issues without fully understanding. A lot of times what you're describing is just camouflage of like, we have essentially, structure, and to some extent we're trying to define these product lines, but we still have, portfolio, program, team level, and we're just trying to put these teams into a program. Sometimes it could be, for instance, let's just say here you have product A like Toyota Camry, and you have Toyota Camry North America, Asia down below. You could have a program for that you're developing a new functionality specifically for Toyota Camry North America, and that could be a program. But based on what you're describing, I doubt it's that. It could be, but that's the only way that would make sense in C, where you might have, but what you told me about the roles and all of that kind of makes me question it. But that's the only way, like within a value stream, you could have programs.
Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate that.
And I think in your example there, Miljan, you typically have a value stream owner, which would be your chief product owner or whatever, right? I mean, that's kind of oversees both product and technology.
Yeah. Exactly. And you can call that person whatever, right? But I can call you product owner, but if you don't have no authority, if you glorify business analyst on a team, that doesn't change anything. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Sylvia?
Yeah, so as I said, I joined late. I'm not sure if that's been covered, but in your graph, the value stream includes both, because we're using SAFe to a certain extent. In your graph, the value stream includes development value stream and operation value stream. Is that correct?
Well, operational value streams usually have development value streams, or at least that's one way to look at it.
Okay, so right now,
and if your development value streams are your arts, but the thing is, a lot of times, what SAFe implementations do, they just look at development streams. They don't look at the operational value streams, and they're like, okay, let's just optimize. Even the way that they define development value streams is inaccurate. So if you define development stream and it's not really a value stream, you just define an art as a some type of delivery, but it's not a true development value stream, then you're like trying to optimize something that's not even end-to-end development value stream.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. But at this phase, I think we're gonna potentially continue to use SAFe to guide their transformation. So my question to you is that for our phase, we kind of defined the development value stream, even though you disagree that it is a true end-to-end value stream. How do we start with the business to talk about business value stream and then talk about involving development value stream included in the entire end-to-end?
Well, it goes back to the outcome mapping. Like, nobody in business is going to do anything unless they see the benefit for it, right? So you start talking about the business problems, like, why are we doing this? Well, look at, how long you're waiting for this. Well, you have to talk to their problems and, their core problems in order to address this. So, and again, as I said, unless we're talking about C-suite and board of directors, none of this goes too far from B to C.
Yeah, we got us to certain level of executives sponsorship, but my company is a huge company, so it involves
Yeah,
10,000 people. So that's why our group of the Agilists tend to think, let's start somewhere small and then bubble up to show some benefit of using that scaled agile to a certain extent, and then
yeah.
see if we can get more buy-in and then get in more people and expand to more value streams. That's what our thoughts are.
That's not a bad strategy. It just takes longer, and it could,
Yeah.
it needs to be both top down and bottom up, like any.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um,
Okay. Thank you.
also put if you double click on this, I highly recommend Steve's book too. What else?
Feel free to come, come off mute.
Well, thank you. I hope you found it valuable. As I said, I hope I made you think, rethink, and reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm planning to also like record this and go a little bit deeper into these concepts, like create little like shorter videos. Because people always ask me, Milan, I want to share this with my team or with my leaders. So obviously this is recorded, but I'll try to kind of go a little bit deeper with shorter videos on each sections.
So, Milan, I don't have a question. I just want to say thank you on behalf of Agile New England. I always enjoy your talks. Always brings every time I hear you, I always come up with like a nugget. And personally, I want to say thank you for volunteering your time, for your support, and hope to see you again soon.
Thank you, Pepe.
Yeah, guys, feel free to we've been getting all the links in the chat here. So feel free to save them off. You can save off the chat in its entirety if you find the breadcrumbs there, and it says more, you can click it on save the chat. So you can save off some of these great links also and get onto this, the mural board, and there's hyperlinks on there as well for more information. Yeah, plus link with us on LinkedIn. We got the getting a lot of good feedback here. We got the YouTube link in there. I got my personal link in there. I got Milan's link in there. What else?
I have a stupid question. How do I save the chat?
There should be sometimes at the top, sometimes at the bottom, depending on what device you're on, what
Oh,
iOS.
there it is. I see
Yep.
the three dots, three dots.
Three dots. Yep.
Perfect. Thank you.
And it'll save off the text there for you. Yeah. I'm trying to keep up with that.
Just tried to drop it in the chat, but it's not allowing me to add files. So
yeah, sometimes it's too big to or there's it's a security thing, I think. But
I think more of security files.
yeah. And then if you sign up, I'm on Slack every day pretty much. So feel free to reach out to me if there's something you can't get. This meeting, as we said, has been recorded. So we will have that posted on our website within 2 weeks. And you just have to log into Agile newengland.org to see them. And you can see any of our past presentations over the several past years. So yeah, feel free to do that. You'll see PDUs I'm gonna put my request in there as an example. Liz already has hers in there if you need PDUs for tonight's session. Full name and email is all we need. Put mine in there now. And I'm gonna switch back over to housekeeping slides, but feel free to stay on, Milan, and whoever, everybody else.
I'm actually driving down to Connecticut, it was the last thing, and I was like, do I drive down? I was teaching today, do I drive down? But anyway, I'm driving down to Connecticut, so I gotta run. But again, thank you, and reach out to me if you have any other questions or if I can help with anything else.
Thank you, Milan.